Board meeting of the Glendora Unified School District. I call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present, and would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Right hand over your heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First thing on our agenda is the report of action taken in closed session. There was no action taken, so there's nothing to report. I need an adoption of the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Mrs. Merkley and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, folks. I know it's a little bit of a soggy evening. Appreciate you coming out and joining us for the evening. So far, it's been a profitable couple of hours we've spent discussing some issues. We're glad you're all here. We're going to move on to staff recognition. Dr. De Leon.
Yes, hold on. Okay. This is our favorite part of every meeting, which is recognizing various community groups, students, and staff who have done outstanding work for our Glendora Unified community. And tonight, at this point, I would like Dr. Virginia Kelson to introduce our first group.
Thank you, Dr. De Leon, Board of Trustees, cabinet colleagues, and esteemed community. I would like to welcome Sherry Heinrich and our other Kiwanian colleague to come up and receive some recognition. Would you join me in giving this wonderful group a round? So, ladies and gentlemen, the Glendora Kiwanians are quite a unique and highly dedicated group. They represent a branch of the Kiwanis Club, or many of us in high school were participants in the Key Club. However, Kiwanians started a few decades ago when females were not allowed to be part of the local Kiwanis. And at this time, Glendora's branch of Kiwanians is the only remaining chapter in the country. So these ladies work very diligently to see to it that needs across the school district are met. Those include providing socks for the Shoes That Fit drive. And during this very challenging time when the supply chain limitations impacted the PPE and access that we were able to have for it, the Kiwanians rallied and provided a tremendous amount of supplies and resources for students and staff in the district. So on behalf of our team and all of us, we want to thank you for your work.
So much. I would just like to say real quick that not only do the Kiwanians provide a lot of resources for the Glendora Unified School District, but they're involved in community outreach programs that span the entire community. These ladies are hardworking ladies. If it's not one thing, it's the next, doing different fundraisers for different parts of this community. So I just really want to thank the ladies that joined us tonight and anybody else that might be watching. They really are a part of what makes Glendora special, the Quanti Anne's group. So thank you all very much, ladies. Thank you.
And I know the board wants to give our sincere thanks for all of the work you do for our students and staff. There is a need, and it has been shown, and you've stepped up. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next honorees are the Duarte Elks, and John and Donna McIntyre are here. And hello, Miss Irene. Please come on up. And community, again, would you join me in thanking this wonderful group? So John and Donna McIntyre are really the point of contact for the Duarte Elks, which their service area includes Glendora. They are called Duarte Elks because their home base is located there. However, these highly dedicated folks have just finished doing a couple of really critically significant things. They provide a dictionary to every third grader in the Glendora Unified School District, and it's amazing. And when we first got to work together a couple of school years ago, they described the assemblies they used to hold back in the day when we could and hope to again, where they would teach students the power of vocabulary, the power of words. They also have a tremendous commitment to student scholarships, and we are honoring them this month especially because of their distinct mission combating drug and alcohol abuse, and it is, by the way, Red Ribbon Week. So, Bono, Donna, John, thank you so much. Thank you. So, could we have a photo?
I have a quick question. How long have you all been donating these dictionaries to our third grade?
10 years.
Yeah, I know my kids had the pleasure of being recipients, and I think it's just really want to thank you. I mean, a decade of dictionaries is a lot of dictionaries for our third grade students, so thank you.
Especially when they've gone up in price like they did this year. But it's a work of love and passion. We give a gift of words to the students. One thing I do want to thank the district for, last year with COVID, we were not able to get into the schools. And Dr. Kelson was instrumental in arranging for us to create a video that could be shared with the third grade students using distance virtual learning. And that video has also been shared with other school districts because we actually do the third grade dictionary starting in Monrovia, Duarte, Azusa, Glendora, Bonita, and Bassett. That's about 3,500 third grade dictionaries that are labeled and given to the students. And it is our passion. Yeah. We also this year, in addition to the dictionaries, I don't know that you know what's in the dictionary. Some of you have seen them, I guess. But it's a resource tool because in the back there is a section with the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, biographies on all the presidents, information on the states, the countries, the solar system. It's like a mini encyclopedia. So we use these dictionaries not only for third grade, but encourage them to be lifelong learners. And that's what it's about. And then we finally gave out drug awareness coloring books this year to every third grade student in addition to that. Because my husband is the vice chairman for the state of California for the Elks in drug awareness. And that makes him chairman next year. So, and we want to thank our exalted ruler for being here tonight as well. Thank you for the time.
Could we have a
Thank you.
photo?
After this, I have a few. You want to talk? Just after this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That is
Anything
so
else you guys need,
wonderful.
let us
Lots
know.
of work.
Oh, boy, don't offer me that. Oh.
You just
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
did you want to say something?
Yes, I do. You know, trustees, we have, as you know, we have many, many service groups in Glendora who are active and always actively support our school district and our Glendora school district community. And we will be recognizing them at upcoming meetings. And so next meeting on November 8th, we'll be recognizing the Glendora Rotary and the Glendora Kiwanis Club. They're both here on the same night, and they said that would be okay. But and then from then on, every meeting we will be recognizing our wonderful service groups who give so much to our students, our teachers, our staff. So anyway, that is something that we're committed to doing this year. So thank you.
Okay, my turn.
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to be reading just a little bit from the bylaws here at the front of our agenda. The board president shall not permit any disturbance or willful interruption of board meetings. Persistent disruption by an individual or group shall be grounds for the president to terminate the privilege of addressing the board. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order room cleared if necessary. In this case, members of the media not participating in the disturbance shall be allowed to remain, and individuals not participating in such disturbances cleared due to may be allowed to remain at the discretion of the board. When the room is ordered cleared due to disturbance, further board proceedings shall concern only matters appearing on the agenda. In the event that any meeting is willfully interrupted by a group or groups of persons as to render the orderly conduct of such meeting unfeasible, the order cannot be restored by the removal of individuals who are willfully interrupting the meeting. The members of the legislative body conducting the meeting may order the meeting room cleared and continue in session. Only matters appearing on the agenda may be considered in such a session. This also extends to our extension of our boardroom, which is inside the cafeteria, and some nights outside. So if the meeting's disrupted out there or in there, we will also follow these same protocols. I would also like to just make a brief statement. This is just my own words here. Glendora Unified School District has really gotten off to a great start. The enthusiasm and commitment by parents and staff to show learning is very positive. Traditions are alive and well, as evidence shows. Walkathons are happening. Pizza parties are happening. Walk to school days are happening. Student councils are happening. Halloween carnivals are happening. Intramurals are happening. Homecoming happened with a week's worth of activities, including the downtown parade. Athletics are happening. Marching band is happening. Drama is happening. ASB activities are happening. Soon volunteers will be back in classrooms. But most importantly, learning is happening. And it's happening at all levels, at all sites, with happy, happy students being back at school. There are parents and students and staff on both sides of the vaccine mandate issue. No solution to the question of COVID vaccines and schools will please all constituents. I would like to offer, the board actually would like to offer, along with Mrs. Vacker, Mrs. Tracy Vacker, to facilitate meetings with local legislators for those folks willing to meet with your local legislators to share some of your thoughts and concerns. These are the people that are voting on the laws that are coming down that we must follow. Mrs. Vacker, I didn't get a chance to ask you ahead of time, but would you be willing to just speak a little bit about what this procedure might look like?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I think what we would be able to do is we would be able to set up meetings with our local legislators, have a board representative available to introduce the concerns from our local constituents, to be able to share with our representatives that are up in Sacramento exactly some of the concerns that we're hearing here. From what I heard and one of the suggestions that was made at our prior meeting was that perhaps we could look at how could we help not necessarily advocate, but to be able to ensure that our folks, our constituents that are most concerned, their voices are heard. And I think that's something that you can help do by helping to facilitate those meetings. So I would be happy to set up a time with our local legislators here at their local offices. We would form a small group of representatives to be able to go. It would be from both sides, right? Those that you've heard from that are in favor and against some of the issues that they're being faced with. I think it's important for our legislators and from what our constituents have shared with us and what all of you have shared back in response with trying to ensure that a quality education, an equal education, an education for all students can be done successfully. Your role would be to act more as the welcome person with the with the legislator, and their role would be to be able to talk about their talking points. These meetings are typically very, very brief that are set up. They tend to be only maybe 10 to 15 minutes long, but it allows for us to have that conversation and to ensure that our legislators are local, know exactly what concerns are coming out of the Glendora area.
Thank you. And I know from one of the discussions we had in closed session was this very topic, and that most of the board members are willing to be a part of this to do the introductory portion of it, and then the public would be able to make their own comments. And like she said, it could be in person. It's up to the legislator. It might be a Zoom meeting. It could be, again, we could go down there and go to their offices if they'll allow it. So not sure exactly what it can look like, but this is coming down the pike. So just to let you know. I would like to remind our speakers tonight that school districts are required to follow the requirements of the California Department of Public Health with respect to masking, as well as vaccinations, testing for staff and students being vaccinated for COVID-19, and to please be decent. That's all I have to say. I have 25 cards. We will have a 3-minute limit, and we are not limiting it to a 20-minute overall limit. So all the cards I have here will get to speak. The first one and I'm going to ask you to line up in twos so the next speaker's ready to go and we don't have to have a long waiting time is that all right with you, Mr. Osborne? Thank you very much. So the first card I have is Ivy Hung, and the second person, Judy Nelson. Excuse me, Ivy. Judy, you want to just come on up and you can be ready to walk up right after her. Thank you. Go ahead, Ivy, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Dr. DeLeo and trustees. Sorry, forgive me. My name is Ivy Hung, and I'm a junior from Glendora High School. Thank you, board members, for all that you've done. I'm presenting this comment to encourage you to continue advocating. Perspective many hold, but rarely get to express at these meetings. Tonight, I want to talk about the importance of both COVID regulations and ethnic studies. First, masks work, vaccines work. It saddens me that so many parents and classmates have fell for misinformation, but the facts do indicate that masks and vaccines are so vital to keeping us safe. Furthermore, I want to emphasize how many students there are to agree with me. We often don't get a chance to speak out at these meetings because Monday nights are very busy. They're full of schoolwork, and so we can't really risk the time to attend these meetings. So I'm thankful to have this chance today to speak to you. I am vaccinated, and I'm glad I'm vaccinated. And I encourage my classmates to get vaccinated as well, so that all of us can return to a state of normalcy. I'm in clubs and I'm active in outside organizations, and I know and I remember the fun of, attending things in person, having fun with my fellow teammates while making memories along the way. And we can't really do that now because of COVID. COVID has given us a lot of issues, and I think all of you here are aware of it. That just touches the importance of why masks and vaccines. I'd like to clear up some stuff pertaining to critical race theory and ethnic studies. I don't currently have it in Glendora, but I am a strong advocate for it. Critical race theory isn't some sort of communist propaganda like some of you may insist it is. It simply teaches about this nation's racist past. How do we expect to become a better society and grow past racism if we don't learn from our mistakes? No white child will be seen as an oppressor or bullied because of it. Person of color students, such as myself, already experience so much interpersonal racism in class because of the lack of empathy. I simply want the best for myself, for my peers, and for
After Judy would be Janae Berry,
Thank you.
or Jenny Berry, I'm not sure, sorry.
I have a shield on my eye because I had surgery earlier
Oh,
today, so
well,
that's
bless
why
you.
it looks so weird. Tonight, I'm going to use my public comment time to talk about a group called the Concerned Glendorans that I'm a member of. We formed a few days after your unanimous vote to extend Dr. De Leon's contract for 2 additional years. Over the last 6 months, we have attended your board meetings and spoken repeatedly about our core objections to the following: mask mandates for students instead of mask choice, vaccine mandates for students instead of vaccine choice, inclusion of divisive critical race theory and mature sexual conduct in the Glendora curriculum. During that time, you've changed, you've listened to us, but we don't know that you're actually hearing us, hearing what we're saying. You were elected to represent all 52,000 residents in Glendora on issues related to schools. You should be repeatedly communicating to our state representatives, including the governor, about our desire for local control in our schools. Those in Sacramento should know your names, that you're representing Glendora Unified, and that you're fighting for your constituents. I very much appreciate the announcement that you had at the beginning. While you repeatedly tell us that critical race theory isn't in the Glendora Unified curriculum, we know that it is seeping into the classrooms and you're denying it. It's not called critical race theory, it's pieces of it. Classrooms. Educational equity, social justice, inclusion, and the sexuality of our children is in the curriculum now and will only increase with the contract you approved at the last meeting for Nicole Anderson and Associates. Realize that parents need other options for educating their children. With the assistance from parents with homeschool knowledge and experience, we now have a program developed to help parents who choose to pull their children from Glendora Unified. Love Glendora schools. We've been so proud to be in a city with such quality schools, but we're saddened that we're in this position. We want to support you, but don't feel like you're supporting us. A school choice presentation is scheduled for this coming Wednesday, November 3rd at 7 p.m. Location will be announced soon. You can find more information about the presentation on our website, saveglendoraschools.com. Additionally, I'm making a formal public records request for Glendora Unified student enrollment numbers by school for the last 5 years, 2015-16 through 2020-21. I join others in, actually I might have time for this. On a side note, when my children were at Goddard over 30 years ago, there was a short-term experiment with assigning children to groups of 4. 2 students who were high achieving and 2 students who were low achieving. They were graded based on the overall work of the members in the group. The 2 who were high achieving saw their grades drop, and the others saw that they were getting better grades. This is educational equity. It means that everyone has the same outcome, whether it's earned or not. Thankfully, that educational equity program was very short-lived. Last year, all of the teachers in Glendora Unified were given a book called Grading for Equity, and that is a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next person is Tara Goller. Whenever you're ready, Janae.
Good evening, Dr. De Leon and esteemed board members. My name is Janae Berry, and I'm a junior and ASB member at Glenmore High School. I truly appreciate all the measures that you have taken to advocate for the students, and I want to encourage you to keep doing so. But I do still have two main concerns. My first concern is regarding COVID safety. There are so many students who wear their masks and are heavily vaccinated, including me, and I'm an ASB, so I know just how much we want to get back to normal. And vaccines, or at least more mask measures, are the only way to do so safely. The point of wearing masks is not to protect yourself, well, not only to protect yourself, but to protect others as well, if you so happen to be or have COVID and be asymptomatic. I would feel safer if my peers were vaccinated, if my teachers encouraged students to wear their masks correctly, and I and many of my classmates want to feel safe at school. If we really do want to overcome this virus, which I know we all do regardless of our different beliefs, we have to make this a team effort and work together to protect one another. I hope that you don't forget this when listening to the disproportionate majority of at these meetings, such as this one, who disagree, because in the end, science is science. Second, I would like to discuss ethnic studies. Diversity and equity training. Diversity and equity training is a step in the right direction, and I was so glad to hear that this was a possibility in Glendora, and it isn't ethnic studies, but it does definitely help. Furthermore, I would like to emphasize that the need for proper ethnic studies at GUSD. I don't deserve to face the interpersonal racism at school when it could have been solved if we simply had better education. I heard that learning about racism, I've heard the argument that learning about racism will only lead to more racist communities. But learning about racism will not antagonize anyone. If anything, it will bring us closer as a community and ensure students feel comfortable around everyone, or each other. It makes POC students extremely uncomfortable when their peers are ignorant about their ethnicity. I'm from Nepal, and I've had so many encounters with students who don't even know what or where that is. There was even a girl in my class who thought I was black at one point just because I have dark skin. This shows it just shows how much we need to properly educate our students. Understanding the struggles and disparities between different races and minority groups creates a safer environment for everyone involved. It helps us understand one another, and it prevents the implicit biases that we all tend to have. And this is why I believe that we need more than just diversity and equity training for teachers, but ethnic studies in the classroom as well. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next one on the list, Marco Villa. Hi, Tara. Thank you. Go ahead, sweetie.
Good evening, Dr. DeLeon and trustees. My name is Tara Goller, and I'm a junior from Glendora High School. I'm here tonight to express the beliefs that many JHS students hold, even though many of us haven't spoken out. First off, I do want to thank the board for all that you have done. We do appreciate you keeping us safe, and I really hope that you continue to take more measures to keep us safer. All of us are united in this fight against COVID-19, and as a student who attends school in person, I am concerned as to why there are so many members of the community who have not stepped up to keep us all safe. So many community members have already died or been in critical condition because of this pandemic. Vaccinated individuals have been proven to reduce the rates of hospitalizations from COVID. This is why LA County and other parts of the state have begun discussing vaccine mandates. But Glendora faces so much division to the point that we cannot even make our schools safer. We have mandates for every other vaccine because they've been proven to work and keep other students safe. It is the choice to remain unvaccinated directly causes the spread of new COVID mutations that are preventing us from reaching normalcy. It is also essential to get vaccinated for those who cannot, as young children that are not eligible for the vaccine and immunocompromised individuals are at higher risk. We all want the pandemic to end and return to our normal lives. We must actively take steps to prioritize the health and safety of students through vaccines to achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Tim Ferguson.
Hi, my name is Marco Polo. I came to this talk for the first time last week. Not last week, last time you had a board meeting, so this is my second time. I was really amazed by the young people who came and spoke. I think that as a parent, that's got to make any parent proud. I also want to recognize the student that we have on the board. I think that's very brave of you to be up here and doing what you're doing, and I encourage that you continue doing that. Thank you. When I came here, my partner had lived here all their life, went to elementary, junior high, and high school here in Glendora. And it's the stories I was told about this city were amazing. So when we moved here, when we moved back here, it was fun watching the city because it reminded me a lot of like a Mayberry, and it reminded me a lot of my own hometown. In my hometown, there wasn't any big box retail. We were a smelter city. A lot of hardworking people, and it was a company town that actually had a big store. And one of the things that I encourage the board to continue is the mask mandate, because I think that the only way we're going to get through this is together. And the last thing I want to see is for us to roll back. We're starting to see that in Russia. We're starting to see that in China. I don't want to see our businesses close down. I don't think they can sustain it. And what's going to save this town is our small businesses. It's not going to be, Jeff Bezos and Amazon deliveries. It's going to be the Frizellas and the T. Phillips and those small businesses that you see in downtown Glendora, and our very famous, Donut Man. And nothing can replace that. And that's what makes this city great. There's nothing I can tell you or tell a lot of people here that is going to change their minds on this position, to be honest. It's a fool's errand. I have family members that I love and care for, family members that were there during some of my hardest times, my darkest periods, family members who are anti-mask, anti-vaccine. I would still go to the ends of the world for them. But I think that we have to remember that we're in this together, and the only way we're going to get out of it, here in Glendora at least, is together, by continuing to show love and appreciation for each other, and by not shooting the messenger. The board is here to follow the rules. I appreciate what you're doing so that we can talk to our legislators. I would like to talk to our legislators. But we wouldn't be happy if this officer here was told to look the other way when we were doing something wrong or somebody else was doing something wrong. So I think the only way Glendora is going to go forward is together. And again, thank you to all the young kids that are talking.
Carmen Berry. No, you're up, Mr. Ferguson. Carmen's going to follow you.
Okay. Thank you. I have missed some of the meetings. I've been doing some traveling. As being retired, I can do that now. And it's fun. 3 months ago or so, I recall, we asked you about what your impression was of CRT. We could find exactly what you thought it was. By CRT, I mean ethnic studies, I mean equity, and a bunch of other terms that have been used to identify CRT. I have not heard back from you, and I agree with Judy. I know you listen, but I'm not sure that you're really hearing us, because back from you as to what exactly you think CRT is. Important that we, the parents here, know what you think it is. We know what it is. I think that by you not telling us what you think it is, you either don't know what it is, or you do know what it is and you don't want us to know that you know. And it just makes me paranoid. And just because you're paranoid doesn't mean somebody's not trying to kill you. So I really want to hear what you think about this. And if you can't do it, then I think you leave us no choice but to. I impression of CRT, from what I have learned, is it is based on communism, it is based on socialism, it is based on Marxism, and it is. And the people who designed it were Marxist socialists. And it is also based on being against parents, against Christianity and organized religion, and against the basic fundamental values of Glendora, of what we're about, our society. And yes, masks are important, and vaccination is important, but that's nothing compared to the essence of our religious roots and our social roots and all to have a say in what our children do. And one of the reasons I'm very concerned about this is I look at the rest of the United States and I see school districts falling right and left all over the place because parents are waking up and are against CRT.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
So I would ask you to look on this.
Before you start, Victoria Gonzalez.
Hello, my name is Carmen Berry, excuse me, and I'm the mother of that beautiful young woman who came up here earlier, who was adopted from Nepal. So I'm just going to tell you my story, because I think that one of the best ways we can resolve our differences is if we believe each other when we tell each other our stories. I see the difficulty really being when I tell you this is what happened to me and you tell me I didn't happen to me, so I'm not going to believe you. Now, I am an older mother. I adopted Janae when she was 3 months old from Nepal. And so when we had COVID, I'm the grandmother age, but I'm the mother. So if she had gone out and gotten COVID, it would have been a very serious thing before the vaccines. My story is that the vaccines are very important. I believe in science, and I believe in the fact that we have mandated vaccines historically, and that being upset on a local level is not as effective as what you're doing now, which is discussing it with the people who actually make these mandates. If there is a mandate, I support it. If they take the mandate away, then we would each have to make our own decisions, but I am supportive of that. But more importantly to me is the ethnic studies. I see no racism in Glendora at all. I see none. And the reason that is because I'm white. I don't see any of it. But what I have learned raising a child of color from very, very young age all the way up through the school system, we went to La Fetra, Sandburg, and now Glendora High School. It is not visible, but it's there. It's very subtle. It's small little insinuations. It's inappropriate questions. And I want to say that I believe my daughter when she says she feels uncomfortable in certain settings, that certain teachers ask her questions that are inappropriate. And so whatever it is, whether it's critical race theory or let's just be nice to each other and believe each other, I would like you to believe my daughter and her friends who are not white. They are from different ethnic backgrounds, and I want to congratulate the girls who are here because they had a remarkable thing happen to them in the 7th grade. They got together and they realized they were different from each other. They had different religions, Buddhism, Islam, Christian. I'm a Christian, by the way. And they were able to, as 7th and 7th graders, come together in a large group of girls and get along. If there's anything we can learn from, it's from these young women. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. Angela Rodriguez Pizarzowitz, and she wrote it out for me phonetically. I hope I said it right.
Good evening, Dr. DeLeon, board members. Tonight, I'd like to address the very important topic that seems to have been forgotten, our freedom. When parents come up here to address the mask mandate, the vaccine mandates, or ethnic studies, they're not only trying to protect their children, but they're also fighting for their freedom to choose what's best for their child. Each parent should be able to do what they've done for generations, to look at the facts, look at the good and the bad, and make the best decision for their own family without having to suffer the mocking and bullying from those who choose differently. And I'm talking to you, parents. It's really sad to listen to people like the Chardonnay woman who spoke last board meeting, bragging about sitting at home drinking and laughing at what's going on, and then standing up here putting down and mocking these parents who are here doing all they know to do to fight for their children. And including the lady who sat here in front was mocking a member who was talking and interrupted her time. It's inappropriate and it's uncalled for. And of course, these parents encourage you, Dr. De Leon and board members, to keep forcing other parents to do what's against their nature to do, because it doesn't affect their child. But I guarantee you, if tables were turned, they'd be singing a different song. See, that's the difference between people like the Chardonnay woman and these people here who spoke up tonight and the parents who are against the mandates. They want to force others to do what they want, but these other parents just want the opportunity to choose what's best for their child and their child's life. But to stand up here or to go on social media and vilify the parents who are trying to protect their children is very distasteful and in poor character. We're all trying to protect our children, and we need to not only respect each other as parents, but remember that our children are watching. I want to make it clear, these parents who choose to fight and speak up against mandates, including myself, are not anti-mask, not anti-vaccine. We're only for the freedom of choice. I stand up here for my freedom to choose to not be vaccinated personally. I stand up here for these parents' freedom to choose to vaccinate their children if they want to. And heck, I'm even up here for the Chardonnay woman's freedom to drive around alone in her car wearing her mask if she feels like it. We all should have the freedom to make our own choices. Isn't that what America's all about? The only difference between me and the Chardonnay woman is the fact that I'm not trying to force her to do something against her will. If you want to wear a mask, wear it. If you want to get vaccinated, do it. If that's what makes you feel safe, then do it. That's what this is all about, freedom to choose. So many people these days want to tell others how to act, where they can go, how to talk, what they can do, how to raise their children. It's completely out of control. So please, I'm encouraging all you parents listening here or online, stop fighting each other, stop harassing and trolling other parents who choose differently than you, stop following them to parking lots and yelling at them in front of their children. Support one another in your choice to keep your family safe. Mask or not, vaccine or not, make your choice and let others make theirs. And to you, Dr. De Leon and board members, I ask that you remember why you were elected, not to push the county socialist agenda, but to serve the community, us, who elected you. There's enough division and fighting in this world. We don't need to fight each other when we're on the same side, which is doing all that is within us to protect our children. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. After you, Mrs. Pizarzowitz, is Jennifer King.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to make a plea to the community and ask the superintendent to brainstorm on how to better partner with us to move our district forward. We are a broken community of friends and family on different sides of the issues. And while it's not possible for all of us to agree on everything, maybe we can come to agreements. That's going to require us to accept some hard truths. Glendora is special. We are passionate, invested parents. We help support each other on Facebook. We volunteer together. We stroll together. But we don't talk about the ugly side of this town. We have a reputation outside of Glendora. We are not thought of as a progressive or inclusive. If you believe there's no need for representation, equity, rights, ethnic studies, inclusion, if you don't see that there is a problem, congratulations. You're probably part of a marginalized group and don't have to personally deal with it. For years, I've heard homophobic and racist slurs and jokes thrown around this town. Granted, sometimes people didn't know what they were saying. I took the opportunity to educate them because I realized it was a learned behavior in this town where many people turn a blind eye because you keep professing it doesn't happen here in idyllic Glendora. It does. And little people are watching, learning, and repeating. If you say you want to exclude America's ugly history and only teach that America does no wrong, that is problematic. Ignoring our history doesn't mean it didn't happen. It means that we will repeat it. If you say we don't need representation and inclusion in our curriculum, then you diminish the lives and the experiences of the people in this town who live it every day. Seeing queer people in the curriculum won't make your kids gay. Representation matters. LGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide versus their peers. It might be my kid, it might be yours. If I were a teacher, I would be offended that you all think that they're going to call your children colonizers or oppressors. They care about our kids, their feelings, their education, and they want all of them to feel included. There are people in this community, children included, who do not feel seen. They are not represented in their education, and therefore they are lesser than their peers. They feel that way. Yeah, I was that kid. I am that adult. And many of you talk about people like me like I'm a dirty word. That is a very isolating statement to make. I get it. The unknown is scary. But the good thing is conflict creates innovation. But not if only one type of voice is being heard. And the loud voices that I keep hearing keep telling me that I don't belong here. I'm important. I matter just as much as you do. To the powers that be, I know that it's not required that you respond, but I will say that your lack of acknowledgement and partnerships are not doing anything to help bring us together and move us forward as a community. Moreover, it's furthering our divide. You need to do something. Your silence and lack of transparency is destroying us.
Before you, Mrs. King, Mel Lane. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jennifer King, and I've lived in Glendora for just about 15 years. I have 4 daughters, 2 graduates, 1 fresh person at the high school, and a 7th grader at Sandburg. To say I am invested and embedded in this community and in this district is an understatement. I'm a minority in this town. I experience things that someone who is white simply doesn't. That's a fact. It is not up for debate or discussion. A white person will never truly know my experience or I theirs, but the difference is I have been educated on their experience. I have been taught the history of their people. I have seen them represented and have heard their voices included in all aspects of American life. California is what I like to call the Disneyland of race relations in this country. Polite microaggressions and quiet biases are how we get by. The truth is, it isn't like this in the rest of the U.S. Last summer was very difficult for my kids, all female, all who appear to be white. And the things that they heard said in this town about minorities was heartbreaking. They're undercover, but they are listening. I had to answer a lot of difficult questions for my daughter who went away to college about what she was hearing about how black and brown people are treated and what they experience in this country. And it was very confusing for them because they are raised under the ideology of Dr. King's dream. But the reality is what they were seeing did not match up. We are doing our children a disservice by not giving them a complete and accurate accounting of the history of this country. I've heard a lot of rhetoric about CRT and ethnic studies, and your fight is not with the people in this room. Your fight is with the governor. And asking the board to defy the state would likely lead to litigation and district defunding, which takes away from resources for the kids and will not likely change anything. So instead of arguing with the board, who have no authority over this and must comply with the state, get involved in what the curriculum is going to teach. Contribute to the structure of what they will learn. This is for 9th through 12th graders. They are capable of discerning the content and keeping things in perspective. I know you're all concerned about turning your kids into social justice warriors, but what is wrong with raising children who want to fight for a just society? I've heard Glendora is not racist, but I saw prominent community members, business owners, softball coaches, downtown yelling at children, lifting the Nazi salute, and screaming "White Lives Matter" last summer. And you can say that's not representative of our community, but it is. At the high school, there's a tree that is commonly and without regard referred to as Beaner Tree. No one bats an eyelash. I've heard coaches and parents make comments about kids being so good at their sport because they're black, and these micro and macro aggressions are detrimental to unifying this community. I'm happy that the governor has decided that we should become more inclusive and representative of all the people who live in Glendora.
Thank you, Mrs. King. Helen Glaze. Okay, Mr. Lane.
Madam President and the members of the board, I have a handout here from the CDC regarding mandates and COVID I'd like to pass out to the members of the
You can just
take their time.
to Mrs. Cornelius over here.
I'm speaking on behalf of my grandchildren, and not just my grandchildren, but all of the children in Glendora and their parents. You see, we had a number of students here tonight, and I think this study by the CDC will be very important for you young people to take a look at. It's basically shows the death rate for children who've had COVID. And I want to point out the fact that in the 22 months from age 0 to 13, all of the children in the United States, there's only been 578 deaths. And if you look to the right-hand side, you'll see at the top up there, for healthy children, one death in 3.9 million cases. How does that compare? If your child is riding in the car, he has 111% more likelihood of being killed in a car than from COVID. It's like that we have here, and I'm almost 82 years of age. I had the vaccine for polio when I was young, and I still got polio. And I limp a little bit today because of that. But this is different. This is different. This is not a kid's disease. It's an old guy's disease. It's older kids. Here we see that 1 in 3.9 million deaths out of 3.9 million kids. Look, you can go to school in safety, because if you get it and you're healthy, you will live to tell the story. And not only that, you'll have natural immunity. I think the idea that we've scared the children into that they have to wear a mask and they have to do this in order to avoid being infected is truly a disservice to them. And I was hoping tonight to come to try to bring reason, not mine. I'm not saying this. CDC is saying this.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Nicole Bliss.
Forgot my reading glasses, so hopefully I can.
Oh, you want to borrow?
Oh, seriously?
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
We all have them.
Straight off of Costco's counter.
Oh, way better. Thank you. So my name is Helen Glaze. I have 2 boys in Glendora schools. I've been anxious about coming and speaking, because there are people that I have known for years who I very much care about, who disagree with me on a lot of the issues that have been in this forum in the last several months. I've watched my kids grow up together with their kids. I've sat in stands at baseball games and soccer games and basketball games. We're part of the same community. And it's honestly been very, very painful to me to disagree with them on all of this and things that are so fundamental to my own beliefs. But I did think it was important for me to come tonight because I want you to know what I think, specifically about my support for ethnic studies. A group of us got together last week to study the curriculum. We had heard a lot of scary stories that ethnic studies would divide us, that it was un-American or undemocratic, and that we should be afraid of it. We found the opposite to be true. I want to read some short excerpts of parts that we found inspiring, or that I found inspiring. Ethnic studies helps bring students and communities together. This does not mean glossing over differences, avoiding difficult issues, or resorting to cliches about how we are all basically alike. It should do so by simultaneously doing 3 things. 1, addressing racialized experiences and ethnic differences as real and unique. 2, building greater understanding and communication across ethnic differences. And 3, revealing underlying commonalities that can bind by bringing individuals and groups together. Ethnic studies provides students with crucial interpersonal communication strategies, cultural competency, teaches how to effectively listen to others, give people in need a voice, use shared power, and be able to empathize. These are skills I want my two wonderful boys to have. Like nearly all of us in this room, my greatest treasure and greatest responsibility are my kids, my two sons, young men who are Caucasian. I know that a common fear about talking about race and ethnic studies is the fear that the outcome will be to make white people feel ashamed of being white. I can tell you that I wholeheartedly want nothing more than for my boys to feel fulfilled and proud and empowered. Yet I strongly believe that when taught well, this is exactly what ethnic studies will help them do, because it equips them to enter the real world. Not a bubble where everyone believes as they do, or even as I do, but the wider world out there, because it will allow them to acknowledge similarities and differences and listen to multiple perspectives. This is what we should be doing in a democracy. I don't want my boys to be fragile. I don't want them to be afraid to talk about hard topics. That's what we do in authoritarian systems. I want them to be strong, resilient, and informed. I want them to be critical thinkers, and I want them to go to schools that do what education is supposed to do, to provide them with the knowledge and skills for college or the workforce, the wider world, whatever they choose. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know. Don't leave me hanging. Thank you. Brian Faber.
Hi. I'm probably going to get cut off of my original thought, but I just wanted to say to all of you kids here, thank you. Please keep speaking up. Please keep telling all these adults that this is something you guys want, something you want to learn. They all need to hear it because they're making all these decisions for you, and they're not asking you what you guys want. So thank you all for being here. Good evening. I am a 20-year resident of Glendora, but I did not grow up here. My oldest child graduated in 2020. I have a current freshman and a 7th grader in Glendora School District. When I moved here in 2000, it was a culture shock. It was a shock in the sense that everybody looked just like me, and the community was much less diverse than where I grew up, and that was only less than 20 miles away. After seeing my oldest go through the Glendora School District from kinder to graduation, it is glaringly apparent our education is not as well-rounded and inclusive for all students compared to my education over 20 years ago. We are fooling ourselves if we think the status quo will be serving our kids the way it needs to and preparing them for their futures. Including ethnic studies is fantastic and long overdue, and I hope we can choose a curriculum and start teaching it before the required date so that both my remaining students can benefit from it. Our country is so diverse, and we are doing our students a disservice by not preparing them for the real world that they will experience. They are going to interact with people and institutions that have been shaped by many different groups of people and that affect groups of people in different ways. Our kids' ability to navigate these institutions and differences and see where change needs to happen is crucial to their future success, no matter their path. In addition, every kid from every ethnic group needs to know their story and see themselves in what they are being taught, and we are not doing that enough now. I implore everyone here to stop letting other people tell you what is and isn't in the guidelines. Please read it for yourself and reach out to people who currently teach this and read the available curriculum in districts that are already teaching this. It is not what you are being told. In addition, if we are going to keep and maintain the status we all know our district has, we need to keep up. Our technology took too long to get a 1-to-1 tech ratio. Our teachers were not proficient in basic digital communication and learning options for programs we already have. We do not have adequate programs to stay competitive. We need more robust ROP and technical training options, an IB program, dual language immersion options. We need more STEM, and we need athletic facilities and field improvements at all school sites. This constant time spent on requirements that either don't exist or that our board has no control over has to stop. There are many of us who live here who have been quietly communicating with the board and district about these things, but it's been dragging on too long, so now it's time for everyone to hear it. I hope the board hears these messages and continues to work and push our district to make these long overdue changes to help all our kids from all backgrounds with all abilities and from a variety of support situations, so they leave here better prepared for what their next steps are, because we are not going to do that if we continue on the path we have been on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bliss. Good timing. Susan Bennett. Hi, Mr. Faber.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking the time to be here tonight and to continue to better our kids' education.
My name is Brian Faber, and I'm a Glendora resident with 2 kids at Sutherland, and really appreciate everyone at Sutherland for what they do. I'm here tonight because I oppose a vaccine mandate, and I would like to make a request of the school board in regard to the COVID vaccine and how it relates to the children of the district. As you know, on October 18th, there was a protest to show support for not having California mandate many things, of which one of them is the COVID vaccine. There were over 1,200 students absent that day, which represents over 700 students above the typical day in support of the protest. A large number of students out. I would like to request the district to begin discussions, if allowed to, by the state to choose to not enforce the COVID vaccine, or if mandated, to allow medical and religious exemptions. Understanding the school district is funded by the state, there's not much choice if the state requires the COVID vaccine. But if the state were to give the district the choice, I believe there's a large group of people in the district who would appreciate forward public discussion on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Faber. Janet Kubak. Go ahead, Mrs. Bennett.
Thank you. My name is Susan, and I just want to say thanks again for giving me a few minutes today. I spoke last week or 2 weeks ago on vaccine mandates, and I just want to ask, are these kids truly at risk? And they're not. As we just heard earlier, they're not at risk at all. I mean, getting struck by lightning is going to be far worse. There are no human clinical studies for the younger generation, and certainly not any studies on children. Yet this has now become the pandemic of the unvaccinated. Vaccinated are still getting sick and passing it. So with this fact, are you guys going to be testing everyone or just the unvaccinated? The vaccine has been proven ineffective, and Fauci has said clearly that there could be boosters being given indefinitely. Ponder this for a minute. If you're vaccinated and this person finds out everything is perfectly fine, you can change your mind and go get vaccinated, but you can't do it the other way around, can you? If you're vaccinated and this becomes problematic, you're kind of stuck, and you're going to be dealing with health problems possibly, or death. When the swine flu vaccine was initiated, it killed a few people. I think it was about 26. At that time, after 26 deaths, they pulled it, and they stated it's a deadly mistake. I'm asking the board to find clinical research on children and adults with proof that injecting them with an experimental medication is safe, and that there have been no deaths, no blood clots, no heart issues, or any other severe side effects as a result to this vaccination. Then I want proof sent to each and every family in the district so they can stay informed and then choose whether or not they want to continue putting their children through the Glendora Unified Schools or not. As of now, there's no data to prove anything, so how can we mandate anything? It is not a law, and the Constitution, as I know it, still does exist. But there is no proof it is killing, but there is proof it is killing people, it is causing heart issues, it is causing blood clots, and far more. I wish you guys the best in this endeavor, I truly do. It is hard for me to come up and speak. I know some of you, and it is very, very difficult, and you have to know the level of difficult it is for me to stand up here. I know you very well, Elizabeth and Corey, and this is so hard. I love your kids. I love your spouses. It's very, very, very hard, but I want you to just take this into consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. Lenore Craig.
Well,
Well, I reflected back on my own life and I applied CRT and ethnical studies to imagine how different it may have turned out. I was born on the small island of Okinawa to a brown mother and a white father. My sister and I are brown. We were sent here to live with our loving white grandparents and then placed in a home for children in Covina. There were over 50 children and only a handful were brown and the rest were white. Yet we were all treated equally and was based on our character and not the color of our skin. For example, if we made good choices, we were rewarded, and if we made bad choices, we were punished. The same rules applied to all of us. The 1979 Royal Oak High School's homecoming court consisted of 5 girls, 4 white and 1 brown. The brown girl who was crowned was me. If CRT had been taught, I believe I would have felt this happen because I was an oppressed person and not because of my character, stripping away the meaningfulness and honor. In 1984, did I earn my degree from APU from hard work, or did they lower the bar because I'm brown? Same year, I married my husband, who was white, and we had 4 children, 2 white and 2 brown. The last 2 were twins, 1 white and 1 brown. Now my family consists of 3 oppressors and 3 oppressed. We never navigated our children's lives based on the color of their skin. Finally, our 2 grandchildren are white, and my heart hurts to think that they will soon be indoctrinated with CRT, thus view me, their grandmother, as brown and oppressed, and view themselves as white, privileged, and forced to feel guilty. No, I am not oppressed, I am blessed, and no, they are not oppressors, they are blessings. Are you aware of how many interracial marriages there are in the U.S.? Can you see how dangerous this is? The bottom line is that CRT was created to destroy our families, our communities, and our nation. It convinces minorities to embrace victimhood while brainwashing white young people into believing any success they achieve is due to their skin. I believe the only outcome of an oppressed person would be either self-pity or entitlement, which always results in an unfulfilling and unsuccessful future, while the only outcome of oppressors would be guilt and shame. President Reagan stated, "To restore America, we must first restore our homes. Parents must take on the mantle of teaching their little ones about the virtues of liberty." And at the close of the Constitutional Convention of 1787, a woman approached Benjamin Franklin and asked, "What have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" Franklin's response has been passed down by generations: a republic, if you can keep it. We have a short amount of time to save our school district. I really believe that you, the school board, and Dr. DeLeon could be heroes in the history of our school district. And that's applying one thing. It's our Constitution. I brought a gift for each one of you, your own copy of the U.S. Constitution. I respectfully plead with you to refer to it as you meet and make vital decisions for our children. You'll find that this precious founding document is the antidote to the poisonous CRT, sex education, abortion, and gender choice without parental consent. It should be the high school graduate requirement, not CRT, and it can abolish many mandates, as mandates and laws may not override the U.S. Constitution. It's remarkably a simple solution. We just all need to uphold and adhere to our Constitution. I would humbly recommend starting with the Declaration of Independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kubick. Stacy Tarzia.
Good evening. I'm here to talk again about the mandate for adopting CRT and vaccinations for our children. CTA has already put out sample lessons for schools to adopt CRT, so we know it's coming. The first one, I looked at a lesson, Black Lives Matter, social change. Another one, I'm quoting it, students will be exposed to the discussion around policing in the U.S., specifically police brutality, where unnamed African Americans have been killed. We know they have, but so have a lot of whites. It goes both ways, and I can't imagine kids having to have this discussion and their parents are officers and having to have them viewed as brutal. What about the student? I said that. The CTA also put out their list of equity work concepts to teach. So this is putting out to all the schools. Divorcing the default of whiteness, gender identity, power and privilege, systemic oppression. We're still waiting for your CRT study session. I mentioned that last time. Mrs. Reuter, you said that you requested it, and I quote you, you asked for a study session because it is less formal and we are able to engage in conversation. We haven't been able to engage in this conversation yet. I'm hoping it's coming though, okay? We love it. And I know you said something with the critical theory thought which began in Frankfurt School, teaches systems that exist need to be viewed through the racial lens. It was furthered in the 1990s by Marcuse, basically endorsing this ideology. This is where it began. There is no absolute truth. Skin color has priority, how we characterize people in their worth and dignity. It shouldn't be. American history is wrong in that it's systemically racist. There are some bad things in it. There's a lot of good, and that's not being pushed. It's all the bad. What has happened to the words of Martin Luther King Jr.? I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. We need to build character, and I said that last time. How about instead of ethnic studies, have that have a program in high school where they have to do service projects, serve one another, learn to give of themselves to everybody, every race, every person. That builds character. As I had said in the last board meeting, you can make a difference. You can do something. I know we've heard that some... okay.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Kate Hamilton.
Hello, everyone. Board members and administrators, it brings me no joy to be at this podium now, probably similar to the way you feel sitting in those seats tonight. And in fact, it was a very hard decision to get up here. But we are in a very difficult chapter of GUSD. Much like you, I and an entire community is grieving over the loss of trust between a school district and its people. It wasn't always this way. But sadly, after months of public comments, emails, meetings, there have been very little indication that the board has heard or is responding to the numerous concerns that have been raised. The trust is lost. And so now it's a matter of how can we get this trust back? Even though we have presented several solutions and requests that would assist in this matter, it appears to have fallen on deaf ears. But everybody deserves a second chance. So tonight, on behalf of over 1,000 concerned Glendorans, I'm calling for the end to broken promises, empty words, and statements like, just trust us. While we wish we could, the lack of response simply does not enable us to. So let's start fresh. Let's see if the board and school leadership values trust. You have heard the comments and received the emails, so I'm formally requesting a motion for a yes or no vote on the abolition of all CRT in Glendora schools curriculum and trainings. To assist, I have here the exact draft, that's what I handed all of you, of what Pasarolas Unified did. They took a stance against CRT. The question is, will you? In addition, we have a petition that has generated over 1,452 signatures of various households urging you to ban CRT. I have the export here if you'd like a copy. It's time for a vote. No meetings delayed, no more empty words. Vote. Who amongst the board will move for this motion? Who will say, I've heard the people and I will lead a response? The reality is that we will never know your answer the reality is that we will know the answer by the end of the night regardless. Because if there is no motion to vote, then we can only assume that you are in favor of implementing or embedding CRT in our schools. You have the numerous comments, you have the petition, and now you even have an example to copy and paste from another district. Your excuses are gone. It's time for a vote, and like I said, either way, we will get our answer tonight. I highly encourage you to show that you have heard the people and move for a motion on a yes or no vote immediately after public comments. Thank you. Sincerely, over 1,000 concerned Glendorans.
Thank you, Ms. Carver. Anne Marie.
Good evening, school board and Superintendent Dr. DeLeon. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. I am Kate Hamilton, and I have a son who is a student at GHS. In listening to the last school board meeting, there were so many who spoke out in opposition to the proposed ethnic studies curriculum, and I realized I did not know what the curriculum contained. Since that meeting, I have now read the documents, and I am here tonight to voice my support for this curriculum to be taught in our schools. In my heart, I believe it is important that all communities be able to see themselves in the history of our country. And I believe this is what the ethnic studies curriculum is set to do. It proposes to include a multitude of stories, narratives, sources, and contributions of everyone in America, which will enable all students to see themselves as an essential and integral component of the grand American narrative. America is incredibly diverse, but the history we've all been taught has primarily been from an Anglo-European perspective. Except for the Native Americans, all of our ancestors hail from somewhere else. And each of these ancestral groups have contributed to the evolution and development of America in very real ways. Their stories deserve to be told, even if the story is of struggle and oppression along the way. As a country, out of struggle we do and we have learned great things. I think this ethnic studies curriculum is one of those opportunities we have to improve the narrative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Let's go, Brandon.
Emery Lloyd?
Yeah, Emery.
Oh.
Yes. And following you is Lesko Brandon.
One question I do have is, why are you guys allowed to share glasses on each other's face, but we're not even allowed to sit by our friends in the cafeteria? Just curious. I'm Anne Marie. The racist CRT appears to be very imminent along with the rollout of the jab on our children. Many have been fighting the school board for months and others for almost 2 years. Regardless, we have all been fighting and the fight is far from over. From masks to COVID testing, to the recall Corey effort and firing the superintendent, to CRT, to the jab, because it is not a vaccine by definition, being rolled out onto our kids, 5 to 11 years old. The list of threats against our children and families who simply want a public school education for their children is ever growing. The schools your children are attending now are government schools. Parents' requests and pleas are met with deafening silence. Instead of working with us, the school board continues to pass mandates for working and learning on Glendora campuses, which strip tax-paying citizens of choice with no options anymore. There's been a one-size-fits-all approach to mask wearing and medical decisions. The threat of our children being poisoned by a shot that has not been tested for long-term side effects will be rolled out in the next couple of weeks on 5 to 11-year-olds. Children are the least likely demographic to contract this already 99.98% survivability virus, and it's even higher for children, much higher than 99.98, let alone die from it. So why is the school board refusing to listen to concerned parents? Why are you nodding along to Dr. Fauci's agenda? What is this school board's actual agenda? Are parents no longer the primary authority in their children's medical and educational decisions? Of course they are. To the parents, the time is now. Don't wait. That time's over. It's time to protect your children, your most valuable gift. Your kids deserve an actual education, not indoctrination. The sacrifice of homeschooling and your children's safety is far more important than your convenience. A group of children just last year were vaccinated with the flu shot without parental permission in Sanford, Maine. In addition, several high school students from East Jefferson High School, Louisiana, were given the COVID-19 shot without parents' permission. This situation just took place last week, and you can read the press release for yourself dated October 22nd, 2021. I plead with parents whose children are still enrolled in Glendora schools, get them out now. There is online school, homeschool groups, co-ops, private schools, charter schools, a host of options and resources. And I have a friend here tonight who can guide you in all the right directions. Her children were in our local schools, and when this whole mess started last year, she pulled them out, and they've been homeschooled with absolute freedom and a better education with no indoctrination. There were some adjustments, but the kids are happy, safe, and have a host of social extracurricular activities all week.
Thank you very much. Marie Batonti. Lesko Brandon.
Lesko Brandon.
No show. Or maybe he's outside.
He's calling.
No. Okay. Marie Batonti. And following Marie is Carrie Mangana. Come on up front, Mrs. Batonti. And Mr. Osborne, Carrie Mangana would be the next one.
Hi, my name is Marie Batonti, and I have a family business in this community. I did have 3 grandchildren that went to this school, and their mom was a teacher here. The mandates and changes in the school curriculum was instrumental in their leaving the state. This school lost a great teacher and 3 excellent students who excelled in their education and were assets in the community, events, and sports. They moved to Idaho, where 4 other Glendora families have also relocated, with more on the way. They do not have a mask mandate in Idaho. But if your child is not vaccinated and a student gets COVID, the unvaccinated student has to quarantine for 10 days. My daughter-in-law, not wanting to have her kids miss classroom time, took her son Jojo to the doctor for an antibody test, as he did have COVID in the summer. He tested positive for the lifetime antibody, so the school accepted this test. He now does not have to quarantine. How awesome that the school was open to medical science. I don't understand why the teachers can't return to the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. I know it sounds old-fashioned, and leave the controversial subjects of transgender and CRT out of the classroom. Common sense needs to return to education choices. Parents do have the right to disallow what the union chooses for their children. Search your conscience and pray before you vote for proposed changes. Your choices have the ability to forever change the lives of these precious students. Wouldn't you want these choices to be positive, healthy, and holy? What you want to teach young minds in order to reconstruct history will be an assault on God's laws. Many people are afraid to speak and thus feel safety in silence. In the book of Revelation, Jesus says, "Wake up." So teachers, be diligent and strengthen what is left and get back to the basics of what they first learned. Get back to teaching these precious young minds and leave all the political agenda out, of which appears to point to socialism. Take all your votes to prayer and then listen. Listen for the truth that is inside your spirit. Psalm 33:12 says, "Happy the nation whose God is the Lord." You have taken God out of our schools, and since God is love, consequently, you have stolen love from our children and taken away a safe and happy place, pushing mask mandates and academic choices that do not reflect that God is in the curriculum. This will suffer much loss for our children. Please invite God back into our classrooms and watch and see what a wonderful school, community, and country we will receive. Great love can change small things into great ones, and is only love which lends value to our actions.
Carrie here. I'm sure you all know me by now. A little disappointed listening to all the racial division going on in this town. I've lived here 50 years, never heard of it till recently. Why don't you care about our children? You say you may care, but your actions speak entirely different language. Masking children when they are the lowest risk group is insanity. Where is your evidence that children are contracted and infecting others with COVID in large numbers? You don't have any statistics, medical journals, and evidence, or you would have shown them to us by now so we would get off your backs. Hopefully by now you understand we aren't going anywhere. Our kids are too precious, their mental health is too important, and their respiratory system is too vital. I have a message for the concerned parents here tonight, which most of them are in the cafeteria. It's time for you all to really stand up. A big way that you can do this is homeschool. I did it. It's not most parents' first choice, wasn't mine. I've had my career for 32 years that I've had to adjust. Comes as a sacrifice. I'll do it. Why allow your children to be caught in this crossfire of this abuse any longer? The loving thing to do for your children is to pull them from schools that don't line up with your fundamental values. Enroll them in homeschool groups. Talk with parents who are already homeschooling. Teach them the subjects that give them the knowledge they need to be responsible adults. And then continue to fight for the once great school district Glendora used to have. Been here 50 years, went to all the schools here. Never had a racial problem in this town, ever. Fight for what's right and true. Fight for the education your kids deserve so that one day you can enroll them back in schools you help fight for. When the money disappears, so do the mandates. In the meantime, there are many options, and I know parents in attendance tonight that you can speak to about homeschool resources. I have a message for Zandra, Robin, Rookshawn, Elizabeth, Corey, and Penny. Please refrain from allowing our children to be taught critical race theory or ethnic studies. Stop lying to the parents about what this curriculum is actually teaching our kids. Do you really want our kids taught that they are oppressed or the oppressor based solely on the color of their skin or family origin? This narrow-minded, racist, and divisive curriculum has no place in our schools. I know I speak for countless parents and families here tonight that greatly oppose CRT. We are extremely disappointed that you are presenting this information as an option for our kids' education. Why do you think children need to be taught such things? Why is it so important for you to bring this garbage into our schools? Penny, you aren't oppressed, so why on earth would you want to teach our children theories that will only cause division instead of unity? What's your actual agenda here? I asked this board which one of you will stand in the gap for our kids, which one of you has been feeling conflicted with all the swift changes in our school. When do our kids and your grandkids' future matter? Are you willing to ever stand up against our tyrannical governor, or is funding the only thing you care about? Teaching the core subject is a job of schools, and teaching moral and ethical values is high and holy calling to parents.
Thank you, Mrs. Mangana.
And I'm also waiting for my public records request that I made at the last board meeting about Penny's relocation money and all the details in section.
Thank you again. That was the last card I have, so we're going to move on to comments from members of the Board of Education. Mrs. Merkley.
No comment.
Dr. Fernando.
Well, they're leaving, but I want to just thank all the high schoolers that came to the board meeting today to engage us and to hear their
all but one.
They probably have they're probably running to do some homework, I would imagine. But I mean, as I listened to some of our young people tonight, I think it just reminded me about why I do this role, and it's because of the amazing, talented people that we have at all levels of our high school and middle school and elementary school. And their ability to articulate their viewpoints, whether people agree with them or not, their ability to critically think, their ability to use evidence, is some of the things that I think why our teachers are so incredible, because some of the reasons why our students are so articulate is because of our incredible teachers. And so I'm hoping that as we continue to move forward, that the public understands that we have incredible teachers that are also critical thinkers and also understand the educational and developmental needs of the students and what information is appropriate for them at different levels. So with that, I want to again just thank all the high schoolers for being here, for communicating their concerns, for being active members of the community, and for modeling for us the kind of civic engagement that we all hope to become. So that's it.
Thank you. I want to reiterate what Dr. Fernando said and encourage our students and thank them for coming to speak up. We started a program back in 2013 called Yes City Gov for 5th grade students in Glendora Unified to learn about local government at the city and school level and encourage them to get involved. So when you actually see it happening, these kids that went through that and were kind of taught, here's how you do it, here's how to speak, here's how to find the meeting agenda and give comment, and see them doing it is outstanding, right? That's the kind of legacy work that we all as educators want to do, see the impact of the good work that you did. And Judy Nelson was my counterpart on that from the city, and we put that together jointly, and it's nice to see our students are heeding our encouragement to get involved and to be involved and to do it so respectfully. Switching from students to teachers, I want to point out the board was thrilled to hear that the tentative agreement was ratified by all of our teachers. I believe Dr. DeGrazia said that the vote was 206 in favor of the agreement, 30 against. So it was very overwhelmingly supported, and we are happy for the good provisions in there for our teachers. And I think the pay raise is probably the biggest one. We'll get that processed, I think, Mrs. Vacker, as quickly as possible so we can get higher paychecks in the hands of our teachers who have had a difficult year. Lastly, I was speaking to Assemblywoman Blanca Rubio the other day and getting some clarification on some of the statewide mandates and what they're hearing at the state level in Sacramento. And really, she gave me some perspective on how diverse the state of California is and how many millions of people believing every different thing under the sun, bringing those viewpoints to state legislators. Her alone, her district, she represents over 450,000 people. Many, almost all of whom are disagreeing in some respect and have different viewpoints on very important issues and topics that are facing everyone today. And here at the board level, I looked into Glendora Unified, and we represent over 37,500 people. That's quite a lot of constituents that we have to represent. We have to represent all of their viewpoints, an impossibly difficult task. But if we continue to think about the most important demographic, which is the 6,800 students that are enrolled in Glendora Unified, and what is best for them and for their futures, that as our North Star, we should be okay. And so I just encourage everyone at all levels that engages with our students and our staff to keep those numbers in mind, and most importantly, those student numbers, and continue to put them first so that we have great student outcomes to celebrate here at board meetings, which I think is all of our favorite thing to do as we continue to move through this school year. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Mrs. Reuter.
It's hard to go towards the end. I also want to really acknowledge the students that came out and spoke with us this evening. Like Dr. Fernando said, it's what we're doing up here, and it's who we serve first, as Mr. Ellenson just remarked. And it is, I would encourage them, thank them for coming, and encourage them to keep coming on whichever side of the discussion point they find themselves on, because we do value their input and feedback. Would also like to acknowledge our student board member, Nadia Bashir, here, because she brings those student voices to us through her reports that way, and would encourage her to also share any student perspective whenever there are presentations or questions. We try to remember to ask you. If we forget, you just need to shoot your little hand up, and we'll be happy to, because it is that student perspective that we really want to hear from. Also, as Mr. Ellenson pointed out in speaking with Assemblywoman Rubio, and how challenging it is for us to represent our entire constituency as one. We have two different groups that are coming up for and asking us to do two opposite things. And that is very challenging for me personally. So the offer that was made at the beginning of the board meeting, I really want people to take advantage of and reach out to have us help facilitate those conversations with the legislators that are actually the ones that are making these decisions, the ones that are putting these mandates in, that are making these decisions for us, for our schools, for our children. And speaking with them on whatever side of whatever side of the issue you find yourself on, I'm happy to participate in any of those meetings and help facilitate them. I don't think we said how we can have people reach out to us if they're interested in participating. Does anybody have that information? Yeah. They could email me, and then I'll make sure that we set up a time to meet with Ms. Thacker, our wonderful Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, who will facilitate actually scheduling the meeting between the board and whoever it is that's interested. And also there are a number of steps and talking points that need to be developed in all of those pieces because it is a limited time. And so Ms. Vakar has very graciously offered to help us through that, as she does that quite often as a board member for the Community College District. And so thank you so much for that. But if they email me, I'll make sure that that process begins of setting up and facilitating those meetings with board members and our local legislators.
Yeah, and we may need to consolidate depending on what the accommodations are that we need to work with the legislators on. Mm-hmm. So we may need to have spokespersons from some of our group members on our constituents to help us consolidate maybe the size of what our meeting might be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so email. Mm-hmm. Dr. DeLeon, if you are interested in learning more about what we can do and how we can all work together this way, or if you are very interested and want to move ahead. I also want to finally acknowledge what happened last Monday. I think it was last Monday, the state walkout day, if that was last Monday or 2 Mondays ago, whatever the case might be. I do want to acknowledge the freedom of speech for the students and families that decided to stay home that day. People feel passionate about raising their kids, and I recognize that, and I want to just acknowledge their choice that way. I also want to thank, and we had some teachers that stayed home, and I acknowledge their choice. I also do really want to thank all of the teachers and students and families that sent their kids to school that day. It is a very divisive topic. A lot of people feel very passionate about it, and I just want to acknowledge that your freedom to speak and do that is important, and I understand, and I support everybody's freedom of speech that way. I think that's it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. My fellow board members, again, talk about going last. Everything's really been said, but I would just ditto the TA for our teachers. That means they're going to get a nice little check before Christmas, which is always welcome, and it's something they absolutely deserve. They are our commodity, besides our students. I also want to acknowledge all of the students that spoke tonight. You think it's tough getting up here as an adult, try being a 17-year-old and standing up and knowing that you are, going to feel some opposition to how you feel. I think their bravery extends beyond bounds, and I'm very proud to be, and they're the reason I'm here. So that needs to be clear. I mean, I think I've made that clear all through my term here. I just want to comment on I just have to let you know that we cannot, as a board, vote on anything that is not on our agenda. And it has to be on our agenda for like 3 or 4 days ahead of time. I'm not sure of all the criteria, but so there's no way we can take a vote on anything that's not on the agenda tonight. I also want to put myself out there on CRT. Just to say that those 3 letters have never come out of the mouths of any of our administrators or our board members saying that it was coming to our district, saying that we're looking at curriculum for CRT. I challenge anyone in this district to find somebody that's used those three letters. It's come from out. They're bringing it into us. It's causing a lot of divisive where it doesn't need to be. Just Sharon. Also being accused of not listening. Because we can't act or we can't respond to your comments does not mean you're not heard. I hear everything. I think my fellow board members would agree with that. We hear you. We're bound by the LA County Department of Public Health. Now we're bound by Governor Newsom's mandates on curriculum and the legislators, so that's why we're trying to get you all in touch with legislators. Let's get to where the people that are voting on those kinds of things make the difference. I am so thankful to be here. My whole life has been nothing but education, so this is really an honor to be able to be here, and I'm so grateful again for those kids that talked. You can tell I'm ready to cry. I'm so proud of them. Not necessarily, for however you agree or disagree with them. That took a heck of a lot of courage. And we're going to move on from here to Dr. De Leon's report.
Yes. Thank you so much, Trustee Board, trustees, our community staff who are here this evening. Thank you. I just have a few words. First and foremost, to our students out there who came and spoke tonight. We do this for you. We do this work for you. And thank you for coming and proving what incredible citizens and people you are, and for teaching us a lesson. They came tonight, they were articulate, they had their points written, and they showed bravery, and I do recognize them. What an amazing job, and thank you so much, students who came out tonight. I appreciate that. Again, we do this work for you. Secondly, I do want to say another pride point of this district is that we are our own certified vaccination point of distribution here in Glendora. Many thanks to our nursing staff. In the next few days, in the next week or so, there will be an emergency youth authorization for ages 5 through 11 to be able to, their parents to voluntarily get them vaccinated should they so choose to do so. In response to that, we want to be on the front end of that so that as many parents who want their children to be vaccinated, ages 5 through 11, can do so. We will begin by offering clinics, those Friday clinics like we did for the first batch, which was ages 12 through 18. We will now offer that beginning Friday, November 5th. That's if the authorization comes in. It's supposed to come in around November 2nd. That does happen. Our first one will be November 5th, and so many thanks in advance to our district nurse, Sonia Delaquila, and her staff for being ready and preparing that as we speak. Really proud of that. Also want to thank our nurses again. They are in the process of making sure anybody who wants a booster, a Pfizer booster, is able to get it, and they've been doing that regularly every step of the way. So again, thank you to them for that. And this work of getting as many voluntary parents as possible is really important. Well before the vaccine mandate, our students in Glendora Unified, we have a very, very high, one of the highest percentages in LA County of students who were vaccinated well before any mandate ever came down in ages 12 through 18. And that is at 79.3%. And that's one of the highest in LA County. And that was all voluntary with our families. And so of course the work to make sure our parents who want to have their children vaccinated get to do that well in advance of any state mandate that will happen, and because then that means that we can start as soon as possible and then not have to wait. So in any case, that's coming on November 5th, so that's really good news, and thank you to our district nurses for that. And then last but by no means least, I do want to mention that Glendora High School is just an incredible athletic powerhouse, right? I don't know how many of you know this. or not, but this is a banner year. This is an amazing year for Glendora High. So let me just tell you something about us, just a few of the feats that I just think are incredible. Our Tartans are knocking it out of the park. So I don't know how many of you know this, but football is undefeated, 9-0. Yay. They are the top-ranked team in the San Gabriel Valley. And our football team was also named CBS High School Team of the Week. And Coach Rohr and our senior, Braden Bruss, were interviewed on CBS Saturday evening. There they were on national TV. I don't know how many of you saw that or not, but if you haven't, go on to any of our social media, and the clip is there. It's incredible. Very, very proud of that. Of course, we have many sports, not just one, where we are excelling in Glendora. Volleyball won our Palomares League title. Yes, big round of applause for volleyball. Field hockey is in the playoffs tomorrow. Big round for field hockey. And get this, girls golf qualified for Division II CIF playoffs next week. And it says that Liz Olateo competes on Wednesday in the Southern Individual Championships. Break it down, Tartans. Woo! That's a lot to be thankful for. I don't know about you, but that raises my spirits. And I say all of that because I think through all of this and the division we're feeling as a nation and as a community as we work through these struggles and these tough times, we need to remember all the good work that happens every day in every classroom in this district, in all of our schools, and that our kids, our teachers are knocking it out, our administrators, our support staff, and our kids are learning every single day, and they're doing things like this. And that's what's important. It's what's happening in schools every day. And I think Trustee Borg said it well in her opening statements about let's think about all the great things that are happening, because all of that is happening despite everything else and all the struggles that we're going through. So I want to say how incredibly proud I am of Glendora Unified School District and everybody in the district. And I want to thank all of our staff, our students, our parents, and our families. And we will continue to do great work in this district every single day. And we're doing it for kids. It's all for kids. So when they come up here, that means a lot. And when I see them succeeding, that means a lot. So anyway, that's my report for tonight, and I want to thank all of you, and thank you, Trustee Borg.
Thank you, Dr. De Leon. Long last, it's Nadia's turn. Nadia, thank you so much for hanging in there.
Yes.
I know it's been a long evening, and you too have things you probably need to be doing. Yes. Your turn, kiddo.
Good evening, Dr. De Leon and esteemed members of the school board. Tonight, I will be giving a student board report on the behalf of Lefetra and Sellers Elementary, Goddard Middle School, and Whitcomb and Glendora High School. At Lefetra, they had a lot of success raising money at a PTA fall fundraiser along with the Jogathon last week and earned over $16,000. They had their first ever trunk or treat event this Friday from 3 to 4:30 p.m. with a maze and trick-or-treating for families to attend. Students can earn lion loot for good character and behavior, which they can exchange for rewards. Also, student recognition assemblies will take place at the end of this month to congratulate students on their accomplishments, and parent-teacher conferences will begin next month. Sellers had a walk to school day October 6th, and it was a success. They had a lot of participation, and Glendora police were outside handing out flyers. On October 12th and 13th, TK Kinder 1st, 2nd, and 5th grade were screened for vision and hearing. They had their Rock the Walkathon on October 15th, where Mr. Bishop dressed as a rock star to encourage students to walk. Sellers is kicking off Red Ribbon Week with a poster making contest as well. Goddard will be having their Creepy Carnival on October 29th with games, food, photos, and a DJ all outdoors. Students are so excited to have an after-school event for the first in a long time. That day, students are encouraged to dress up and enter the pumpkin carving contest at lunch. Goddard has a book review contest in the library, which can be accessed through the Goddard Library catalog. 20 winners will receive chocolates. Students are staying involved with the dodgeball tournament that ran all last week, intramural sports, and after-school homework club. Web leaders meet with their 6th grade buddies every Wednesday morning for activities, and ASB has continued their lunchtime activities with bingo on the lawn. Their Chick-fil-A fundraiser was a success with over $500 raised by ASB to fund school activities. And in the spirit of Anti-Bullying Month, students are encouraged to sign a pledge. At Whitcomb High School, their librarian Linda Shook has continued to plan Red Ribbon Week with activities and contests for students to enjoy. Their principal honor roll breakfast is being held this Tuesday and will ideally be outside but may have to move inside depending on the weather with safety protocols observed. They are so excited to recognize their academic achievers. At Glendora High School, Red Ribbon Week has just begun. ASB spent 3 hours yesterday putting up posters and ribbons to encourage students to be drug-free. Today, every student received a gram with candy. Tuesday, students will be encouraged to sign a pledge and receive a taco. Wednesdays will have lunchtime activities. Thursday will have a free Red Ribbon swag in the student store, and Friday will be a Red Out. There will also be an on-campus costume contest on Friday at lunch with voting and prizes. On October 28th, Orchestra is hosting their Spooktacular event at 6:30 p.m. in the pavilion, where families and elementary and middle school students are invited to attend to watch. ASB will also be putting on a trunk or treat for kids to come get candy and listen to the orchestra play. Regarding athletics and performing arts, this is already touched on. October 29th is a tailgate game at Citrus College with Glendora football currently undefeated against South Hills. The tailgate will begin at 5 p.m. and everyone is encouraged to wear red. Girls volleyball won the Polaris League title with an 8-2 record. Band and pageantry program started competition season this month. And up next is Loara High School field and parade competitions on October 30th. Last week, Glendora Show Choirs put on their cabaret showcase outside in the pavilion with dinner and a combination of group performances and solos. There was also a raffle featuring items kindly donated by businesses in Glendora. Tickets had completely sold out with over 300 seats filled. This is a record. And make sure to stay tuned for Santa Noel and Holiday Stroll in the next coming months. Rehearsals for Charlie Brown the Musical are underway. It is being directed and choreographed by Mr. Stevens and musically directed by the new choir director, Mr. Davis, as a collaboration. It will be at the start of the new year in January, between the 13th and the 15th. Make sure to check it out.
Wow.
Wow, there's a lot going on. Oh my goodness.
You know, that just made my list look pathetic, but I love hearing all the wonderful things that are happening out there for kids. Thank you, Nadia. Moving along to staff presentations and information. Developer fees, Mrs. Becker.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent De Leon. It's my pleasure this evening to present information with regards to our annual report for developer fees. As you may know, the Glendora Unified School District, along with the majority of the public schools in California, collects developer fees to help offset the costs associated with providing additional school facilities for increased student enrollment generated by new housing development within the school's boundaries. A requirement of this participation of the developer fee program requires that we present an annual report to you on the fees collected and the expenditures from these fees. The developer fees annual report for the reporting period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 included commercial fees of 54 cents per square foot and residential of $3.36 per square foot. And the report actually details the revenues and the expenditures for the developer fee fund for the annual period. The total balance right now for the fund closing at June 30th, 2021 was $3,123,282. And the breakdown of that started off with the original balance being $3,311,201. That was in our reserve. We had developer fees that were collected during the 2021 of $197,000. And we had $16,400 spent from the interest from the county treasury reserves. I'm sorry, $16,480. Our expenditure total for the year was $401,460 during the 2021 school year school year, which then left us with a balance of $3,123,282. And I will enter this report into the record for public information. There's no action that's needed this evening. We're not asking for an increase of fees, but I just want to let you know what happened for the past year. Any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Vacker. Board members, are there any questions or comments? I don't know that I've heard this report before, so I'm grateful.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
What can these monies be spent on?
Yeah, they can be spent on our facility improvements that we need to make. So they are meant to be able to help offset and defray that cost to ensure that our facilities are top-notch and can provide the educational services for our students.
Thank you, Mrs. Vacker. Moving on to the interim assessment plan, Dr. Kelson.
Thank you, President Borg. I'd like to invite the presentation team to come up this evening and join me here at the podium. We are pleased this evening to update our community on the work of our staff to find additional ways to focus on student learning so we know more and more about exactly how each child is progressing in furthering their learning and their knowledge. So with that said, with me this evening we have Patricia Alaf, who is one of our teachers, Dr. Marie Purcell, principal of La Fetra Elementary, and Mrs. Jamie Norrell, assistant principal at Glendora High School. A vital member of our team who is not here this evening is Dr. Jennifer Prince, who is the executive director of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation. So on behalf of all of us, I'd like to go ahead and start the presentation telling you a little bit about why. With the bottom line answer being because we want to know how every student is doing. Have to try it now? Okay, thank you, sir. A few things that are important to note. We want to make sure that we're well aware before state testing, which is the CASP acronym you see on the screen, how our students are doing. This is a tool that can be used across classrooms in the district so that we know how students are faring within each of our classrooms, and when teachers are ready and principals guide them to discuss that across classrooms. We also need to know more and more about how to provide acceleration and enrichment opportunities for our students. We want to engage our educators in further collaboration, sharing about what is truly working for the students we serve. We want to look at what student learning is defined as in addition to what is in our standards-based report cards at K-8 and at the high school level, the more traditional, at K-5 and at the middle and high school, looking at other measures in addition to the grades provided on report cards. The system that our staff has selected is both reliable and valid at the national and state levels, and it has been a long-standing request from our staff. Next, I'd like to turn it over to another presenter to talk about who did this work for our students.
Collaboration has always been a cornerstone strength of our district, and this process definitely displayed that strength. We had staff stakeholders from all levels represented. We had teachers from every level. We had reading specialists, counselors, administrators, and technology specialists all taking part in this process. As you can see by the list here, we also had every site in our district represented, and everyone involved had a chance to listen, ask questions, and assess the programs that were presented.
Evening. And so thus, as the presenters concluded their programs, presentations, we were given a rubric, and there was criteria that we looked at as each presenter. I'm going to go ahead and click. So one of the criteria was predicting CASP performance in preparation for our students' language arts and math for springtime. Also, grouping students for intervention through the various programs doesn't meet that criteria, as well as importing sources of data, such as math placement, district assessments, and benchmarks, as well as parent communication tools are the reports that we can share and download with the parents to track and share their growth in academics, as well as were the programs student-friendly? Are they easy to use? Would it be easy for the student to find the different resources and use the lessons? As well as teacher-friendly, easy to navigate, downloadable reports. As well as another criteria was the reports, printable subgroups, and was it synced with the portable Aries? So this was the criteria that we, the attendees, looked at each presenter, and the rubric was based on a 4-point scale.
We also wanted to, in this collaborative process, look at individual comments. So we had a lot of time to collaborate with the different committee members, but we also had each individual person kind of write their own participant notes about what they valued in the different programs that we were being presented. And one of the main reasons, or some of the most salient comments, included things like a desire to continue utilizing AR, which is a component of the STAR Renaissance program. This is something that all of our families are accustomed to using and really love it. And our teachers are really familiar with it and the zones and all that. So it just kind of made sense. Also, the STAR system includes ready-to-use lessons for intervention for K through 12. So a variety of resources are contained in the STAR program that not just teachers, but interventionists as well as paraprofessionals can use those resources right without having to do any further research. And as was mentioned earlier, so the STAR and the STAR ELA and math assessments are shorter. And the good thing about that is, of course, our teachers are always asking for more instructional time. A lot of times some of the testing is very cumbersome. Kids get test fatigue. And teachers feel like they're pressed for time to do instruction, so that's good. And even though they are shorter assessments, as was mentioned earlier, they're short but sweet, but their results closely predict results that would be attained on CASP and ELA. So that's good if we do end up doing state assessments in the spring. And then lastly, there are effective progress monitoring tools that can be used throughout. So not just as summative assessments at trimester end, but teachers, interventionists, paraprofessionals at any time can use the different progress monitoring to see how specific groups are doing, how subgroups are doing, and so you can create really flexible groups for intervention as well as enrichment that are, kids can move in and out depending on what skills they need.
So you've heard mention of a comparison of 3 programs. A bit more about that. We invited representatives from these 3 well-known, nationally normed companies to present to the staff. And in their work, we compared the program that our staff selected, which is STAR Renaissance, and 2 others. And using the 4-point rubric that Mrs. Olaf mentioned in her part of the presentation, you can see that the company with the blue line represented at the bottom, which is STAR Renaissance, received the highest score. There was a second close contender. And it's important to note in the next slide the reason why the team decided to go with STAR instead. Even though the 2 platforms, STAR and the second program, were competitive in terms of perceptions about the instructional materials available, what it came down to was the ability of STAR Renaissance to be integrated into Aries, which makes it easier and faster for teachers to get individual information about students. It also has the robust sync with Schoolzilla, which gives the principal an opportunity to run confidential data reports. And I would just point out, bullet 2, the synchronization of the Star Renaissance system with our ARIES system and basically the student portal, the staff portal, is much stronger than it would be available with the second system, at least at this time. So with all of that said, we wanted really to take the opportunity to give you an overview of the choices that our staff had the opportunity to consider, and in the end, their recommendation that we acquire the Star Renaissance interim assessment system to help us gauge how students are learning during the school year in preparation for not only the end of year testing in the spring, but also their advancement in the future. So if you have comments or questions for our representatives here this evening, we would love to entertain them.
Any questions from the board? Mrs. Merkley?
No, not really any questions, but I just love that, especially that you're able to find that before the CASP is given so that you can change and fix what needs to be fixed. So I love this AR. I'm kind of glad. I know there were reasons that you were thinking about doing away with it, but my kids grew up with AR, and I love it, and they loved it too. So it's still a good program. We may phase it out eventually, but until then, thank you for keeping it.
Dr. Fernando?
Criterion validity. Things I like to talk about. I just want to make sure that I understood this. So when you looked at the criteria slide, were those criteria things that were nationally normed as well, or are they used as criteria in other districts so we can do a comparative analysis of how these assessment models may work in other districts versus our own?
Sure, thank you. So in part, really the answer is both.
Okay.
So we searched for rubrics, and I give Dr. Prince credit for this, that other school districts and sometimes even entire states have used to select an interim assessment system. And in that regard, this is a kind of a national measure. Some of the items in our rubric were based on feedback that we gained from staff last year as we looked for an early pilot and solution when most of our spring testing was canceled due to the pandemic. So, Dr. Purcell, I don't know if there are any other specifics you want to.
Well, I can't see that, so.
There, it's this one.
I can't see that either.
Oh, I'd love my glasses. Someone coming yell
feel
at me.
your pain, I do.
There are reports about subgroups, for example, and those very closely align with the subgroups represented in the CASP testing. There is also information about, specifically predicting CASP performance, another highly valid, highly reliable measure.
Okay. So obviously, when we think about STAR, the fact that the student experience and the teacher experience are similar in terms of the experience, that's a good thing. I mean, there wasn't a significant difference between the programs and STAR. So you're just saying that based on the last slide, those bullet points, that's what kind of tipped it over the edge in terms of using that. Okay. And do typically when districts do that, they do this mixed method kind of approach where they're doing kind of rubric-based, but they're also collecting qualitative data? Is that typically what we see? Okay.
Definitely, because it's the teachers who are going to be administering it, right? So we definitely want to hear their feedback, especially those that had already been using the STAR even before.
Yeah.
Many teachers were already doing it to get their feedback on what were their results and how did they feel about it and what was their perception of how the students were interacting with it. So I think it's very, very important.
So I just want to make a statement here in light of some of the comments that I heard about education and the forms of education. I think this is what is important, that you have trained educators with your children, because they are engaged in this type of assessment models to show if your child is actually learning what they're supposed to learn. because teacher education is a professional pathway. It's not something everybody can do or just pick up. So thank you. Through this example, remind us that it's not just any person that can get off the street, pick up curriculum, and say, I'm a teacher. And sometimes I think some of the comments that were made today, there's an implication that can happen. So thanks for your work on this.
Mr. Ellenson?
No comments, but thank you for the thoughtful work in this project. I appreciate it.
Mrs. Reuter?
Sorry if I missed this before. What were we doing before this assessment?
That is a great question.
I would like to invite Dr. Purcell and Mrs. Norrell to address that. If you could go maybe 2018, 2019, and then our special year we had last year. You may have to come here.
So I can say that we didn't have a common assessment platform that we were using across K-12. I would even say that we had a lot of different things available and different grade levels. Were using what they found to be most beneficial. So teachers would get together and say, what reading assessments are going to give me the best picture of how my students are progressing in the different areas, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension. So there was a lot of just using a variety of multiple assessments, using work samples, some of them using STAR, but there really was a need to be able to speak the same language, if you will. You might have common assessments at a particular grade level, but how does that translate to the next level? So I think for years, we've really been kind of building up to let's get there. We were looking at one point at purchasing the interim assessments that were available through STAR, but those were very, very time-consuming and very expensive very time-consuming. So you would be testing and long every few weeks, and so that wasn't an answer. This is a short test, so they can get it done in a half-hour time, but you can really drill down with the reports to find out what are the key areas that individual kids or groups of kids need support in. So add to that.
Yeah, at the high school level, we were really focusing on the performance test portion of the CASP, and our teachers years ago had created and continued to refine performance tests that were given twice a year. They then used the rubrics from that system, and that was put into Illuminate. So that was our first step. It was funny, though, our teachers are asking to keep that portion as well because of the fact that that's a great predictor for that portion of the CASP exam, in addition to data.
So this must make it a whole lot easier for kids moving from grade to grade, and also I would suspect even more from, say, primary to secondary, as you're, bringing kids from differing elementary schools up to the middle schools, that you've got sort of apples to apples assessment this way. So I love standardization and process when it comes to things like this. It must make, while there's a little bit of growing pains getting into a system, it must make things a lot easier in the end. So I do remember that we used this last spring instead of, we were given the choice, and that this was overwhelmingly received as the way to go by our teachers, given what last year had looked like. So every grade takes the CASP?
No.
Okay. I'm talking to the people in TV land right now. Tell us who takes the CASP.
3rd grade through 8th grade.
Uh-huh.
And then 11th.
3rd through 8th and 11th?
Yes.
Okay, every single year? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so will all grades be participating in these these assessments before the CASP, or only the grades that are taking the CASP?
All of them.
Okay.
That's what we're going for.
That would be our ultimate goal.
Okay.
Please bear in mind, though, a couple of requests for some opportunities through time. In other words, one of the monumental tasks that awaits our teachers is common planning time to implement this. We are not alone in this district with the national reality that we have a labor shortage. And so at this point, we're doing a soft implementation until our teachers have time to really get together and figure out the magnitude of what a full implementation would look like. So we will continue to keep you updated. If it were a non-COVID year, and I could tell you that, this week we're getting 2 grade levels together, we're going to train together, teachers will select XYZ, I would feel better saying we're doing a full implementation. For the monumental work that our teachers continue to do this year with kids back on campuses, it'll be a little softer implementation than that at this time, with long-range goals to do that full implementation.
I'm sure they appreciate that very much. We were given the choice last year.
Correct.
Do we know if we're given the choice this year as far as CASP is concerned?
We have been told that the State Board of Education has the same testing blueprint this year that we had last year.
Okay.
So a lighter testing load in the same courses and grades as last spring.
That's a great answer too. Thank you all very much for this information. I appreciate your staying. This is a long meeting, but very important. This kind of information is the very hard work that's getting done by our administrators, educators, staff members, everyone. As they're still trying to navigate through the COVID situations, the real work, you know what I mean, the important work that has to keep going is going at the same time. So thank you all for being here to represent all of your colleagues that are clearly doing a lot of heavy lifting and hard work right now. This seems like something that's really going to make a lot of sense as we move forward and implement the program. So thank you, really.
Turn the mic on. I would just like to point out again the collaboration that goes into something like this, and that means that people have a voice, and so that's so important. Data-driven, hello. And I just can't tell you what a difference it makes in instruction when teachers can actually look at data and say, you know what, this kid needs help in this particular area, and she or he may have not seen it. But it's very evident when you have these small tests. Multiple data sources. A lot of parents used to live by the old STAR system. Before CASP, it was actually the state testing used to be called STAR. And every year, because that was one of the things I had to administrate, every year you'd get questions about, how'd my kid do on the STAR? He said he came home with 100. They account so much accountability on those state tests, but you need to look at the daily work of a kid. It's more than one test, and that's why I like this, because who knows what the kid comes to school with, even for this STAR program or the CASP. It could have been a rough night's sleep or whatever. They could do a poor job or an excellent job in one day. I think this is, if I may quote an astronaut, one small step, but one giant leap, because our kids and our teachers need to be able to adjust their instruction according to what their students, individual students need, and this is the way they can see it. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to see this program.
Nadia, do you have any questions? I think you're an 11th grader.
Yeah, what do you think, Nadia?
Yeah, I think this is great. I know, personally how stressful state testing is, and to have this, giant cumulative test at the end of the year. I haven't experienced it for a couple of years, which I'm thankful for, but I do remember how stressful it was. So I think it's really good that this is a reflection of how students, grow over time and how they can make progress. And especially, coming back from the pandemic and having, such a light load, especially in testing, to come back and have to take this, huge test as a junior would be really overwhelming, and wouldn't be a reflection of how intelligent I and my peers are. So I think it's really good that we're doing this gradually, and it is a lot less stressful.
Thank you, Nadia. Yeah, it was Sheila Faker Lion. All right.
Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you. Thank you. Great job.
We now have the presentation of the resolution that Dr. De Leon is going to read.
Okay, and then afterwards you'll need to call for a motion to adopt.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, I think it's important to go ahead and read this resolution. At the last meeting, I was asked to bring a resolution to convene an ethnic studies constituent curriculum committee. So whereas on October 8th, 2021, the state passed legislation AB 101 mandating public schools enact an ethnic studies graduation requirement, beginning with the class of 2030 who will enter high school in the fall of 2026. And whereas Glendora Unified School District has board policies and administrative regulations 6141 that mandate and outline a collaborative process for the adoption of district curricula. And whereas Glendora Unified School District Board Policy and Administrative Regulations 6146.1 outline the graduation requirements as well as the process for considering revisions to said graduation requirements. And whereas the Board of Education of Glendora Unified School District desires both processes involve community participation, including representatives from student groups, the certificated teaching and support staff, classified staff, administrative staff, as well as representatives from parent and community groups. And whereas the Board of Education has directed me to convene such members representing a diverse cross-section of the Glendora Unified School District community, and whereas the board recognizes this is a deliberate and multi-leveled process, the committee will regularly report progress to the board during regular board meetings. Therefore, be it resolved that I hereby designate staff to convene the Ethnic Studies Constituent Curriculum Committee. It is further resolved that the committee hold its first meeting on or before the end of the first academic semester of the 21-22 school year. Okay.
And this resolution is signed by all 5 board members and Dr. De Leon as well. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. It has been moved by Dr. Fernando and seconded by Mrs. Reuter. All those in favor?
May I make comments, Mrs.
Oh,
Clerk?
sure, of course, yes.
So I just appreciate the process that we are taking with respect to adopting ethnic studies curriculum. I understand and appreciate that the mandate and the impetus to do this has come down on us from Sacramento, but what I see you doing here is the how we're going to do it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's you organizing a committee of constituents to do it right and to do it by Glendora Unified standards so that it's value add to all of our students. And I appreciate that very much because I think that's the answer to so many things that might make people nervous in education, because things can be perverted in a million different ways. All of the curriculum, much of it, I don't know how you maybe screw up math, but social studies curriculum in general can be taught wrong. And we can teach our kids the wrong things, but we can also do it right. And the fear of perverting curriculum shouldn't keep us away from doing the right thing and doing things like this the right way, in the Glendora Unified way, by the standards that we have set. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm very proud to support this. I was told tonight that what I'm not saying is speaking volumes. So I'll say something. I support this committee. I support the work of it. And I look forward to the committee bringing forward to us an ethnic studies curriculum that is right and that is good for Glendora Unified. There's a lot that I don't say because there's no reason. I didn't make the state mask mandate. I didn't make the state vaccination mandate. Those are out of our hands. I don't think it really matters what I believe or not. We're following the rules. But when it comes to ethnic studies curriculum and the teaching of sensitive subjects, I can say that I support this work. I went to school here, elementary, middle, and high school. My wife went to school here, elementary, middle, and high school. I see it only being a benefit to teach diversity, to teach inclusion, to do equity work, which is not necessarily race-based, but like Mrs. Merkley said at the last board meeting, it's about identifying the students that need a little extra help so that they can perform at their highest levels too. These are good things. These are good things for Glendora Unified. These are things that I want Glendora Unified to achieve before my kids enroll. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm doing this, and that's why I will be voting yes to support this resolution and future resolutions and work like this on very important work to make sure it's done right. Because doing it and being brave and doing the hard work to do it right is what we're here for. So thank you.
Amanda, go ahead.
I just want to add to my comments from my colleague here today and just remind the public what our mission statement is here at the Unified School District. Glendora Unified School District equips our students with the knowledge, skills, and character to succeed in college, career, and life in an ever-changing global society. And I want to highlight that last phrase of ever-changing global society. So in any organization, you adapt to the changes around you. And so any good historian doesn't just view history through one perspective, they view it through multiple perspectives. And in order for our children to be effective in an ever-changing global society, because most of our children do already engage in a global network, and global relationships via social media, in their education, in their, in the ways that they consume information. Doing it in this way, by the way, enables for a cross-sector participant way of doing that so that voices can be heard. But it is indeed in sort of engaging our educational endeavor of preparing our kids for an ever-changing global society. And I would say is unfortunately that I'm the first person of color on this board, and that happened only in 2017. When you look at other Southern California communities, we have a much more diverse school board representation in other communities. And so as that person that I think represents many of the comments that were made here tonight, especially by our high schoolers, it's very important that people that are marginalized, that their voices are seen and expressed in our curriculum, and that they get an opportunity to learn also from their forefathers and foremothers that have shaped this country. And I think that's part of the American dream and American story. So, yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Merkley?
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Reuter?
I guess I'd just like to expand a little bit on Dr. Fernando's comments. I, too, believe that the world is only getting smaller, especially after the last 18 or so months of our lives where every industry has figured out how people can work from home no matter where that home is. And so learning how to work with people from different countries and different backgrounds and different cultural celebrations, et cetera, will only make our kids more competitive as they enter into a global market. Being able to just understand other people and learn other things, I think, is such a relevant subject and topic for all of our students. So I'm excited about the process that gets to happen here. It's a process that we have to take. When Dr. Prince gave her presentation regarding the sex education, we talked a little bit about the process of adopting a curriculum and how we are required to have a specific process. And here we are enacting that process with this resolution. So I'm excited to embark on the process, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all the different stakeholders that get to participate in the group. And sorry, the last line said that the first meeting will be when?
By the end of the fall semester of 21-22, which would be
by Christmas time.
January. Is it Christmas? Is first semester end at Christmas, or does it end when we come back?
December 17th.
So by Christmas then.
Okay, I'll look forward to it. Thank you very much.
I just would like to add that I support this because the very people that all spoke here tonight could be represented on this curriculum committee. So it's inclusive of students, of parents, of educators, of even classified staff in our school district. I think there's even going to be a board representative if necessary. Well, yes, and community at large members. You don't have to necessarily be a parent. So this is an opportunity to be involved in your students or the future of kids. So take advantage.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Vote carries 5-0. We'll have more business here. Discussion action items. Number 1, approve, ratify the final report on the low-performing student block grant as presented. Dr. Kelson.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
That's it.
All right. It's been moved by Mr. Ellenson and seconded. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Briefly, Glendora Unified received approximately $367,000 over a 3-year period to support students who had what were defined by the state as lower than mastery level academic performance. I am pleased to report that we have spent those funds to serve the needs of the students for whom the grant was earmarked.
It has been moved by Mr. Ellenson and seconded by Dr. Fernando. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Vote carries 5-0. Number 2, approve, ratify the ESSER 3 plan as a required part of a new California Department of Education policy as presented. All those in favor? No, I'm sorry, I need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Has been moved by Mrs. Merkley and seconded by Mrs. Reuter. Dr. Kelson.
Thank you. This ESSER 3, or the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds provided under the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, provided the school district with some extra funding to implement additional safety procedures to ensure that 20% of the funds are used to further accelerate student learning. I am thankful to our colleagues in the business department for their wise suggestions about the facilities improvements related to safety that we can submit to the county for consideration. We have also reserved some of these funds to provide for summer school in the summers of 22, 23, and 24. So the next steps with this plan will be submission of it to the Los Angeles County Department of Education. We will look forward to their feedback as we meet this deadline.
Yes,
I have
Mrs.
a quick
Reuter.
question, and it's sort of, sorry, I'm asking it a little bit about this one and a little bit about the one before. Is there anywhere people can go to be able to see what the funds, how they've been allocated, where they've been spent, where they're going to be spent? Where would somebody be able to get a little more information on both the low-performing student block grant and this ESSER 3 plan?
Thank you for that. We certainly can add the reports for these 2 documents to the district website. In the case of both grant funding streams, they are in the local control and accountability plan, or the broader umbrella document that has been a long-standing part of GUSD. So we're happy to add these as well. We will label this ESSER 3 plan as a draft because the state of California is still deliberating on whether or not our plans will meet the federal requirements. Otherwise, we're happy to post them.
Aye. Those opposed? Vote carries 5-0. Number 3, approve, ratify the Memorandum of Understanding with California Partnership of Achieving Student Success, or CalPAS Plus, as presented. Again, Dr. Kelson.
So moved. Second.
Oh, sorry. Okay, it's 9:30, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mrs. Merkley, for the motion, and did you second it? Mrs. Reuter, thank you, guys.
They're over here, they're on it.
Can I claim my knees hurting?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
It's late.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this is the third and final discussion action item this evening for Med Services. The CalPass Plus Memorandum of Understanding gives the district data team the opportunity to report general, non-identifiable information about how our students are doing as part of a couple of grant programs. They are the Career Technical Education Incentive Grant and the Strong Workforce Program Grant. This is part of a large statewide effort to see to it that more graduates go into post-secondary education and have greater preparation to serve in careers of their choosing. And it's a long-standing program for many districts across the state of California. It's merely a renewal of our MOU that we previously have had.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Consent items. The Board of Agenda may consider agenda consent items as a whole or as individual divisions. Any item may be removed by a member of the board for discussion. Is there anything anyone would like removed? Okay, seeing that, then I need a motion to approve.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Ellenson. Now we're going this side. Moved by Mr. Ellenson and seconded by Dr. Fernando. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
I move we adjourn.
Did you second that, Mrs. Merkley? Wow, you beat him. Moved by Mr. Ellenson and seconded by Mrs. Merkley. All those in favor? Aye. Good night.